What happens when raw honesty collides with royal privilege? Live, with millions watching. Howard Stern doesn't hold back, and Prince Harry wasn't ready. This wasn't just an interview, it was a reckoning. Subscribe now for more celebrity confrontations that you won't see anywhere else. Before we dive into the madness, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next, trust me, it gets personal. What happens when one of the most unfiltered voices in media locks horns with a royal who believes he is controlling the narrative? You get fireworks. That is exactly what happened when Prince Harry sat down for a live, uncut interview with Howard Stern. This was not a friendly chat or a promotional spot for a new project. This was a collision of two worlds, one that thrives on honesty, and one that has grown used to managing the spotlight. Howard Stern has built his career on asking the questions others are too scared to say out loud. He does not flinch. He does not sugarcoat. And he definitely does not care about titles or formalities. So when Prince Harry, who has spent the last few years crafting his public image through interviews, documentaries, and books, walked into that studio, the tension was already thick in the air. There were no pre-approved questions, no handlers hovering nearby, no carefully crafted statements. Just two men, two microphones, and a very large audience listening to every word. From the moment Harry took his seat, you could feel it. The unease, the defensiveness, the calculation behind every response. But Howard was not playing that game. He cut through the small talk and dove straight into the contradictions that have followed. Harry, for years. The stage was set, the cameras were rolling, and within 5 minutes, you could feel the temperature rise. And it only got worse from there. If you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. This is just the beginning. What unfolded in that studio was one of the most brutal, honest, and uncomfortable interviews we have seen in a long time. And trust me, you are going to want to see how this ends. The moment the mics went live, Howard wasted no time. He leaned back in his chair, gave Harry that familiar smirk, and asked the question that had been sitting in everyone's mind for years. So, you say the media ruined your life. You hate the press, but you keep calling them. Help me understand that. Harry paused for just a second too long. He was not expecting it to start like this. He shifted in his chair and gave a calm, measured reply. There is a difference between telling your own story and having it stolen by the tabloids. I want to speak on my terms, not theirs. Howard nodded, but the look on his face made it clear he was not buying it. So, you doing a Netflix series? A best-selling book? Dozens of interviews? That is you controlling your story. But when someone snaps a photo of you in a parking lot, that is an invasion of privacy. Is that what we are saying here? Harry let out a short breath and tried to keep his tone steady. It is not that black and white. There is context. The press has followed me since I was a child. They never respected boundaries. I am just trying to protect my family. Howard leaned forward now. His voice stayed calm, but his words cut deeper. You want to have your cake and eat it too. You want to be left alone, but you also want the attention when it helps you. That is the problem. Harry's jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to say more but held back. The tension in the room started to build. This was not just an interview, it was a challenge, a very public one. Howard was not interested in the rehearsed lines or polished responses. He was calling out the contradiction right out of the gate, and Harry was already on the defensive. If you think Harry is dodging the truth here, hit that subscribe button right now, and drop a comment below. What would you have said if you were in that chair? Because this was just the beginning. Things were about to get a lot more uncomfortable. Harry tried to keep calm, but his shoulders were tight, and his eyes were locked on the floor more than on Howard. The smooth, confident tone he started with began to crack. Howard could feel it too, and he pushed harder. You talk a lot about sacrifice, Howard said. You left the royal family. You say it was for peace, for freedom, but you are living in a $16 million mansion in Montecito. That is not exactly exile, is it? Harry straightened up. His voice sharpened. Money does not erase pain. My mother was hounded until the day she died. I watched that. I lived through that. I will not let that happen to my wife and my kids. The studio went quiet. You could hear a chair squeak in the background. Howard waited a beat, then nodded slowly. That is real. I get that. But a lot of people see you making deals with the same media you say destroyed your life. Does that not bother you? Does it not feel like you are using the very machine that took your mom away? Harry's eyes flicked up, just for a second. It is about using the platform to do good, he said. To raise awareness, to speak truth. Howard leaned forward again. But whose truth? Yours, or the one that sells? Because right now, it looks like you traded one palace for another. One full of cameras, contracts, and streaming rights. Harry sat back and crossed his arms. He was not yelling. He was not storming out. But the discomfort was written all over his face. The defensive tone, the clenched jaw, the pause before answering, he was rattled. And then Howard dropped one last line. Quiet, but sharp. Your mother ran from the press. You ran toward it, just with a better deal. You could hear an audible gasp from someone in the control room. That hit hard. And Harry. He went silent, just stared straight ahead like he was trying to decide if this interview was still worth finishing. The royal shield, polished and practiced, had a crack. And now, everyone could see it. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Harry brought up Diana. You could feel the tone shift instantly. My mother's death was the turning point, he said. She was chased. Hunted. The press took her from us. That fear is what drives everything I do. His voice dropped a little. More emotion, more weight. For a second, you could see the vulnerability. But Howard did not flinch. He let the silence hang for just a beat, then leaned in with one of the hardest lines of the interview. Do you think she would want this? He asked. You have made her the face of every story you tell. You bring her up in every documentary, every interview. It is like she has become your spokesperson. Harry looked stunned. He blinked fast, then sat up straighter, almost defensive. I speak about her because she cannot speak for herself. I know what she went through. I lived it with her. Howard nodded slowly, but his tone stayed sharp. I believe you loved her. I believe you still do. But are you honoring her, or are you using her? Because you say the media killed her, and then you turned around and signed a multi-million-dollar deal to tell your story to the same media. There was a long pause. Harry opened his mouth like he was about to respond, but nothing came out. His hands were tight in his lap. His voice, when it came, was quieter. I have always said, if I could protect one more person from going through what she went through, then it would all be worth it. Howard looked at him, steady. Then maybe you should ask yourself if all this exposure is helping, or if it is just feeding the same machine. Harry glanced down, then back up. And for the first time in the entire interview, he looked unsure, not defensive, not calculated. Just ... unsure. The emotion peaked right there, you could feel it. The studio was quiet. No one moved. Because for a second, the curtain dropped. The prince was just a son, and the pain was very real. Howard shifted gears, but not gently. He leaned in with that smirk he uses when he knows he is hitting a nerve. So let us talk about Meghan. Harry's jaw tensed. You could see it in his body, the way his back straightened. He already knew where this was going. Howard continued. A lot of people think she is the star. You, the accessory. You walked away from royalty and walked into her world. Is that fair? Harry's tone changed fast. Firmer now. That is not how it works. She is my wife. She deserves respect. The way she has been treated is disgraceful. Howard nodded, but there was no backing down. But she is out here. She is on magazine covers, giving interviews, running podcasts. You are asking people to back off, but she is front and center by choice. Harry's voice cracked just a little. She is telling her truth. That is not a crime. Howard leaned back. Calm, but relentless. Maybe, or maybe it is brand building. Maybe this whole thing is just the new version of royal life, but under different lights. Harry looked like he had been punched in the stomach. His hands clenched into fists on his thighs. His voice rose. That is not what this is. We left because we had no choice. Because it was destroying us. We wanted privacy. Howard cut in, quickly. You say you want privacy, but you signed with Netflix. You wrote a memoir. You are doing live interviews. What is private about that? The tension in the room was thick now. You could almost hear Harry's heartbeat through the silence. He struggled to keep his composure. It is about setting the record straight, he said. We were lied about, misrepresented. We are not just going to sit back and take it. Howard stared at him, steady. You are right, no one should just take it. But the moment you put yourself back on the stage, people are going to clap, boo, and ask questions. Harry exhaled, hard. He did not speak for a moment. His fists slowly opened. He looked like he was holding back something bigger. Rage, maybe. Or heartbreak. And in that silence, the image was clear. This was no longer just a royal talking. This was a man feeling cornered, and the walls were closing in. Howard leaned in again, this time quieter, but sharper. Let us talk about the charity work, he said. The speeches, the documentaries, all the appearances. Harry nodded. Ready? He knew this was coming. We care, he said. That is the point. To make an impact, to inspire change. Howard kept his eyes locked on him. When is the last time you helped someone without a camera there? Harry blinked. It took him a second. That is not fair. Most of this work gets covered because it spreads awareness. Howard did not flinch, or because it builds your brand. Your image, your new role. Prince of Empathy. The air went tight. You talk a lot about mental health, about pain, about healing. Howard continued. But every time we see it, it is on Netflix, in a podcast, in a book. Is that healing or marketing? Harry stiffened. That is not why we do it. People need to see that healing is possible. That is the only way they will believe it. Howard tilted his head. Or they need to see you, see your logo, see your name tied to struggle. Because the more pain you show, the more clicks you get. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked like he was about to fire back, but stopped himself. I have lived that pain, he finally said, voice low. This is not a show. Howard's voice stayed calm. Then stop acting like it is. That hit hard. You could see it. Harry shifted in his chair. His hands locked together again. He was searching for the right thing to say, but it was not coming fast enough. Dust silence filled the room like a spotlight. And in that moment, it was no longer about whether Harry cared or not. It was about whether people believed him, whether his cause still looked like compassion, or whether it looked like business. And in front of Howard Stern, belief was getting harder to hold on to. Howard leaned forward, his voice lower now, but every word landed harder than before. You want to be the hero and the victim, but you cannot be both. Harry froze. That line stopped him cold. Howard did not back off. You walk into rooms asking for praise, and when it does not come, you claim you are misunderstood. You want credit for leaving the palace, but you also want sympathy for how hard it was to walk away. Which one is it? Harry's jaw tightened. You have no idea what it was like inside that system. It broke people. It nearly broke me. I believe that, Howard said. I believe it hurt. But I also believe millions of people go through worse with no press, no book deal, no mansion in California to fall into. Harry shifted in his chair. He looked tired now. Not angry, just drained. Howard leaned in again. There are people raising kids alone, fighting cancer, losing jobs, burying loved ones without cameras to catch the tears. You tell them your story and expect them to feel small so yours can feel big. Harry shook his head. That is not fair. It is not, Howard said, but it is true. For a moment, there was nothing but the hum of the studio. Harry's face was blank, but behind his eyes, you could see it all building up. The pressure, the shame, the helplessness. Howard softened. Just a little. You want to change the world. Good, but stop making every spotlight about your pain. Pain does not make you right. Pain just makes you human. Harry looked down. He had faced reporters, cameras, critics, and crowds. But this felt different. This was not just an interview. It was a mirror, and the reflection staring back was not what he thought it would be. Harry's voice cracked. As his hand hit the table, the sound echoed. Not loud, but sharp. A final burst of frustration that had been building with every question. This is character assassination, he snapped. You brought me here just to tear me down. His face was red, his breathing heavy. He looked more like a cornered man than a prince. But Howard did not flinch. He sat back, calm, eyes steady. No one forced you to come here, Harry, he said. You booked this, you asked for this. Harry opened his mouth, then shut it again. You wanted to speak your truth, Howard continued. Well, part of that is facing the truth too. This is not an attack. It is accountability. You are not above it. Harry looked around the room like he wanted someone to step in, but no one moved. The cameras kept rolling. The silence was real, and it hit harder than anything said out loud. I came here in good faith, Harry said, quieter now. I thought this was a real conversation. It is, Howard replied, but real conversations are not soft, they are not easy, and they do not protect your feelings when your story does not hold up. Harry blinked a few times, then looked down. You could see it in his shoulders. They dropped just a little. The energy drained. It was not rage anymore, it was something deeper. He had walked into the room prepared for a fight, but he got something he did not expect. He got held accountable. And in that moment, he realized this was not a stage he could control. This was not a script he could rewrite. This was real. Howard leaned in, voice low but firm. Would your grandmother be proud of who you have become? The words hit like a punch to the chest. Harry did not answer. He did not even try. His eyes dropped to the floor, and his face went still. The fire from earlier was gone. No anger, no defense, just silence. You could feel the weight in the room. It was not just about the Queen, it was about everything she stood for. Duty, restraint, grace under pressure. And now, all of that was being measured against the man sitting across from Howard Stern. Harry looked lost, stunned, like something had finally cracked open. For a moment, he was not a royal. He was not a rebel. He was just a man, sitting in the wreckage of his own words. No one said a thing, because there was nothing left to say. Harry pushed back his chair. The scrape echoed louder than anything he had said in the last 5 minutes. He stood up, face flushed, jaw tight. Without another word, he walked off camera. No handshake, no goodbye, just silence and retreat. Howard watched him go. Then he turned to the camera, calm and collected. That is what happens when entitlement meets reality. He let it hang in. The air. There was no need to shout, no need to gloat, just truth. Sometimes, the hardest mirror to look into is the one someone else holds up, especially when that mirror reflects pain, ego, and choices. Howard leaned back, eyes steady. This was not about tearing anyone down. It was about asking the questions most are too afraid to ask. He paused, voiced quiet now. Truth is not always pretty, but it is always necessary.